Hello, this is Sambava. Welcome to a very short music yoga tutorial. So I wanted to record an onboarding video for everyone who is interested in doing the music yoga. And it'll have a couple parts, an intro to what music yoga is and what dimensionally we're trying to do. But also this part, which is a more tactical, if you've never used music yoga software before, how might you approach that from a complete beginner and standardize on some software that I think we can all use to create beautiful music together. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and introduce everyone to a lovely little program called Logic Pro X. So I will share my desktop and make sure I'm sharing my sound. And this is what you see the first time you open Logic Pro X. Now, if you don't have Logic Pro X, it's a piece of software that Apple makes. I'm on an Apple right now. Is my personal preference for creating music. There are many applications that do this same kind of work, but I found historically, the closer we are to using the same application, the better. And what I like about Logic Pro is it's very powerful, like Pro Tools and many of its other peers, but also it's a big brother version of a program that most people already have, which is called Garageband, which comes standard on every Macintosh computer. So if you have a Mac, you have a GarageBand, when you open it, you'll see something very similar to this. And it's a good way to get started if you're not sure. But once you have enough kind of comfort in GarageBand, upgrading the Logic is basically totally worth it. So I'm going to start from complete scratch and just show you a couple of ways that we figured out that can make enablement of music much, much faster. So in this case, it doesn't really matter. I'm not going to record anything at the moment. I'm just going to create an audio file and say create. And now I have a blank screen in Logic. So there's a couple of things that'll show up in the window, and basically you can start to get rid of things on the top left, because in this case, I just want to see what's called my grid. So what this is this is a grid that goes linearly in time. So 1 is the start of the song, and as you go ahead, you can see, time spreading out left to right. And then up and down, you have a number of tracks that you can create. And this is where you're actually going to create the component parts of your song. So as a song develops, you'll develop these different layers that'll be laid out on this grid, and that will be the music that you end up writing. So there's a couple of things you can do in in Logic. And for those of you who are savvy with a piece of music, on the track drop down here, I can create a new software instrument track. And what that's going to do is give you access to Logic's completely stacked library of all sorts of every kind of instrument you could possibly imagine built into the computer. So if I needed, let's see, a nice piano sound, and I wanted to give this, whatever grandma's piano is, I can select this as my instrument. I see it here. And then if I right click on here, I can create a MIDI region, and I can either click into this and draw notes on the piano. So you see my piano right here. I can actually take my pencil tool and draw notes into here. Boop, 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 boop. That's not going to sound very good, but you can see as I'm drawing here, it's actually creating, and I can actually hear that sound go through. Pretty neat. So there I get my piano. So that's if you're very advanced, you can actually plug in a keyboard and actually play notes into the computer. But for those of us who are less technically advanced, that's not even what we're going to focus on right now. Because what I'd like to draw everyone's attention to is a beautiful innovation in making music, which is called samples. So on the top right corner, this little roller coaster icon, if you click on this, that's going to open in Logic a sample library that's going to give us access to all sorts of pre-recorded sounds that sound fantastic. So I discovered this around the time of the India album because I wanted to put a lot of cool Indian sounding drums on the album, and I did not know myself how to play Indian sounding drums. What I found I could do is actually search the library, and it had already pre-recorded tracks of all sorts of Indian drums. And if I click on these, it would actually play that in a really cool way. So, and I can use that sample and drag it into my song. So even though I didn't create it, these are royalty-free samples, can be used by anyone. And this is oftentimes as I have an idea and I'm trying to flesh something out in my head, usually the starting place that I'll start at. So I will sometimes just try to find a beat. Like I like one called, there's this Golden Age beat. It's fine. It's a little too fast. I'm in a 120 BPM project. And this is a 73 BPM sample. But when I drag it onto my grid over here, what this is going to do, let me slow this down to the right tempo, is it's going to give me this. And I could highlight this bar here, and this will just loop this section for me. So this is a little 4-bar loop that now has a drum part. It'll repeat. And while I'm doing this, I can find other stuff that might sound cool with this. So I'm going to stack another beat on top. There's one that I like. This is just from exploring around, gravel kick beat 1. Adds a little bit more dimensionality to the beat. And I often like stacking 2 beats together. So I'm just going to drag that into my project here. Any beat you have on here, if you hover over the bottom right side, you'll see this little icon that has a little loop over it. That'll just let you drag and repeat that beat. So now I have 2 drum beats stacked on top of one another, and I like this. And I'm going to find something a little bit more melodic to put over it. The sample I found earlier called Summer, 2-Step Summer Piano. Now this is starting to take shape. I can drag this on here. But I'm missing a bass element, so I'm going to find a bass. 80s game synth bass 1. Giving a little bit of a chord progression. So in just a couple of minutes, I have this pretty cool starter of a song. So what I'm often doing in the sampling is equal parts exploration, just finding things that I hear that start to inspire me, and I can audition different things that sound good together and either keep those in, remove those out. I can play around, and I want to encourage people, especially in an early part of song creation, to really play, because playing often leads to the really cool ideas that we can really leverage to do some cool things in music yoga. Now, this might not necessarily be the right vibe for a song that I ultimately want to meditate to, but it's a starting point that I can start to build this from. And this gives me a foundation. If I have the ability to actually play instruments into the computer, I can play over some of these elements. And oftentimes we found that the combination of what you can generate in the computer, but then overlaid with an actual live performance of a real instrument. This is something that Mudra does beautifully on all his songs. He has a software layer underneath that's providing the foundation of the song, but he's playing his live violin over that. And it's those 2 things together, you get kind of the best of the computer and digital elements, but there's an organic feel to it that he's able to really blend together nicely. So that's one trick, the samples. And I have this, very quickly, I can get to an idea. And what we've done in the past that I wanted to show folks, just in terms of how songs have actually developed. This is an email I actually sent to the music yoga team during my India trip. So as I was in India, we knew we had wanted to do an India album. I was there in the moment, in context. And I really wanted to start working on the album while I was still there, rather than coming home and starting it much later. So what I would do is I would record these little vignettes, inspirational vignettes that we would use to send back and forth and actually farm out these ideas to a wide part of the team. So in this case, this was an idea for a song called Sparsa. This was a resort in Tiruvannamalai. It was very beautiful. It was this very kind of holy, sacred Garden of Eden feel to it. And, I sent some inspiration about the place. Here's what it's like. It dimensionally reminded me of Hawaii. There was lots of birds. I actually recorded a voice memo on my phone, which I do a lot because I wanted something about the ambient feel. And you can actually hear that in the beginning of Sparsa. That's just from my phone, actually at Sparsa. And the other thing I like to do is just search reference songs. So in this case, I just really had a sample on my phone and I found this drum beat that kind of inspired me. It reminded me of a Zazen song. So I wanted to actually put that together. So the Zazen song I referenced was one of the inspirations. And then also it just reminded me of two other songs that kind of had the same ambient feel of what I was going for. And I included some pictures of the resort. So even if someone wasn't at Sparsa, they could dimensionally connect to what this looked like. And I put that in a file, put that in an audio recording, sent it out to the team, and that became the foundation of the song. So you can hear an early version of this that I attached to the email. This is my voice memo, the birds. There's a loud bird in the background. There's just this sweeping sound. So I made a little snare drum of just sweeping sounds, little kind of Indian bongo. No chord progression over it, no melody. It's just something that's like the base layer of a salad that we can use to start the song. Then I sent this out to 4 or 5 different people. They sent back different ideas, and we actually started to collaborate because I also sent them the file, which they could just add things directly to. And we can start sending that file back and forth to each other. And this later became the song that ultimately became Sparsa. So I want to encourage this part of the process too, because it's not that you need to have a fully complete song all by yourself. Different people are going to have different specialties in the music yoga process. And for a lot of people, just getting a starter is the hardest thing. For other people, once they hear something and have something to respond to, they'll get all sorts of ideas and can build on it. So wherever your comfort and preference is in that process, there's probably a way to get started on music yoga. And I think that's probably the main place people have gotten discouraged, just feeling like they have to do it all, when actually the beauty of this is we can do this in all these individual pieces. And that being said, the more complete idea that you're able to generate, the easier it is for others to collaborate with you. But, I would rather have a music yoga world where there's too many things going on and too many ideas, and it's just giving us a lot of inspiration. But I want to use this format as a pretty good standard process of how I think we can work together in music yoga. I have this idea, dimensionally spell out the idea. It's really helpful having reference songs and what you like about the reference songs, because that can start to already articulate a direction. And pictures are a very powerful way for people to connect to the dimensions. So if you can find a picture that evokes the feeling that you want, then you're generally in good shape. So this is one powerful tool of collaboration that I wanted to share in the context of this. But I also wanted to share another really powerful tool that's come up just recently in the last couple of months, which is using AI to help us on our journey. So back to our logic session here, we have this really cool 4-bar loop. It's not a whole song yet, but it's nice. Maybe it has a feel I'm trying to evoke. So I can export this using the bounce feature. I can bounce the song, and it's just going to bounce this little 4-bar phrase. I can bounce it to an MP3, save it to my desktop, and I have it there. Once I have that little snippet, there's a number of AI tools, and I'll just show you one that I like called Suno. So this is suno.com. And what you can do in Suno is you can upload an audio file. So in this case, I've already uploaded this 13-second clip I've generated called My Cool Beat. So you can listen to it here. That's what we just heard in Logic. I just exported it, imported it into Suno. And Suno has this beautiful feature called Extend. When I click Extend, it's going to show this window, and I can basically feed it a style of music. I say, I want this one to sound a little bit more like new age pop, and it will take whatever style you feed it, give it a title. You can also feed it additional parameters. It's an AI, and it's going to take this 13-second clip. When I click Extend, it's actually going to generate a new version using the song I fed it as the baseline, and actually generate new parts and ideas that I can use to hear my song in a different context. So this is great because this is what I usually do with collaborators, but it takes a really long time sometimes to ship these songs back and forth. So what the AI is amazing at, it's not going to give me a perfect, fully fleshed song in the way that I maybe want, but it's going to give you very quickly a way of hearing your song in a completely new way that might generate ideas. So I generated 4 variations of this beat, and you can hear that it extended it into a 2-minute long song, or sometimes a 3-minute, 4-minute long song. And I can hear my song in a new way. So here's one. So it made it a little bit more new agey sounding. It sounds like a little bit more like a 7 and 5 now. And it has this cool little keyboard melody on it. It's not bad, actually. Makes it a little more dreamy. Ooh, added a new chord progression. So it's not perfect, but it's starting to get somewhere actually that sounds a little bit more like meditation music. Now I have another option. It like the piano melody, just in a slightly different way. I just generated 2 new ones. Let's hear what's going on here. This one, the synth's a little bit longer on it. Let's do this 4th one. I don't like this one as much, but it's just giving me a different chord progression and melody options that I'm now hearing that's allowing me to hear the song in a new way. So once I have something, let's say I like this first one, Suno gives you the option, depending on what version you're on, I can download this as either an MP3 or a higher quality WAV file. I'm on the better version. It's like $10 a month because I use this thing all the time. I could download the WAV file. And the cool thing you can do, last piece of the puzzle, AI stem splitter. I use this app called Fader, F-A-D-R. And what you can do for this is if I like this, because it's just going to give me all in a file, I can actually feed this back to I'm going to upload that stem I just downloaded from Suno, and it's going to analyze this audio and create high quality stems of each of the individual components. So it'll give me the drum part, the bass part, the melody. It'll give me all as separate files. So now if I liked any part of this, I could actually bring back individual ingredients into my project file and just put them in context right there. So what this allows you to do in a very short amount of time is generate ideas, and samples are a great way of doing this. I can mix samples with stuff of my own creation and design. I can use the AI tools to actually extend the song, allow me to hear 4 different variations of it that might inspire additional ideas. And if any of those come back, I can actually use Fader to give different stems of this. So this is just like the melody part and the synths. This is now just the bass. This is the drums. So if I found something, it's also giving me the chord progression on here too, which is really nice. Makes this easier to do later. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to say I like this. I'm going to download the stems. It's going to give me the option to do all these. I'm on the premium version. And now I have these stems that I can just bring directly back in the project. And suddenly I have all sorts of ingredients and components to build off of. So what I want to encourage in this tutorial, end to end, is experiment. Because in the experiments, you'll often find the cooler things that we need to do. And then also just encourage you to use the tools that are out there. And there's so many amazing tools that have come up with AI that will allow you to take and change your music in very wild ways very, very quickly. So in that experimentation, if you can put all that in the file and learn this software to enough of a degree where you can put that together, that becomes something you can very easily shop around to other people on the team. They can take your file, download it. They have all the pieces in there and they can add their own ingredients to it. So tons of cool options. And I'll just show you the last piece of this because I just downloaded these stems and I'll just show you. I'm going to open these. And it's going to give me individual files that now I can drag just straight into my project. I'm going to create new tracks. And it's going to have created actually the whole song here for me. So I'm going to minimize all this. One organization trick, if you highlight multiple tracks, right click on it and say create track stack and do a summing stack, that's going to put all these files in one folder. So if I expand this, it includes grandma's piano plus my original beat, but now I can collapse it. That's all there. I can just mute this whole thing. And now it's just going to play the stems that I just downloaded from Fader. And this is where I can use the tools in Logic. Because let's say I just want to start this with the drums. I can cut these files. And let's say mute this. I'm going to use the mute tool. Oops. Now I want just the drums on this. So I'm going to say, just start with the drums. Now I'm just going to add in. So I can start to play with this like an actual song. And you can see, I'm going to use the controls. I can zoom out on my grid here and zoom in. I can actually see the different parts of the song and start to actually play with these things and move them around. So the tools I use the most on this, the pencil tool if you're drawing in things in MIDI, the pointer tool is usually the one I'm on, the scissor tool if you want to cut things up. So there's tutorials on all of this because there's 5 million controls in Logic. But basically, if you can get everything into the grid, line it up together and move it around, you're doing already 90% of the work. So I wanted to start there for this video, just to give people raw enablement power and some comfort using the software. If you're doing all this in GarageBand, it'll look almost identical in terms of the controls. You're just going to have slightly less options when you're doing this. And then in later sessions, we can get more into how you can really get sophisticated into the world of Logic. So happy hunting. I look very much forward to the music you're going to create from this. This is Simbava saying, until next time, later.